Thank you, Sman. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. We're very honoured and privileged. It's our very own Chris Williamson, a true champion of the people who's always believed in fighting for the underdog. He's been a race champion, fighting racism all his life. And the sad thing is, this gentleman was actually hounded out of the Labour Party because he spoke out against Israel and in favour of Palestine. So let's have a big hand for the one and only Chris Williamson.
Thank you, Patrick. That'll be fine, yeah. Well, thanks very much indeed for that wonderful introduction, Asif. I really do appreciate that. And what a wonderful, fantastic crowd we've got here today. It just shows, I think, as Fareed and other speakers have said, that Derby's waking up to the atrocities that are being perpetrated by the Israeli state on a daily basis. But you know what gets me? It's the media framing. When you hear news reports on the BBC, ITV, Sky News, and they talk about the Palestinians, they always preface it with Palestinian extremists or Palestinian militants. Well, the militants and the extremists are in Israel, not in Palestine. And let's also be clear about the right of the Palestinians to defend themselves. The UN General Assembly passed a resolution making it very clear as long ago as 1978. I've got the wording of it here. It says, it reaffirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for independence, territorial integrity, national unity and liberation from colonial and foreign domination and foreign occupation by all available means, particularly armed struggle. And so, when we hear the media talking about militants in Palestine and extremists in Palestine, let's call them out at every turn and point out that it's Israel that is a terrorist state because they are perpetrating terrorism on the Palestinian people. It's an utter disgrace, a shame, a crime against humanity, what Israel is doing. They're using exploding bullets. So when they shoot somebody in the leg, it's almost certain that they'll have to have their leg amputated. They're using poisonous gas, and we hear on the media talking about tear gas being used. It's not tear gas, it's poison gas. And this in itself has killed a number of Palestinians who are peacefully protesting. Both of those things are against international law, and yet the Israelis are flagrantly disregarding it. We see them detaining children. We see them bulldozing people's homes. We still see them killing medics, the young 21-year-old Palestinian medic who I saw a little documentary about just the other day, who dedicated her life to helping other people in distress. And she was gunned down in cold blood when she was trying to tend to the wounds of a wounded Palestinian protester. What a disgrace, what a shame on Israel. And they shoot down dead journalists. And just before I arrived here today, I discovered, some of you may have seen the news already, others may not have, that Israel has bombed the Al Jazeera headquarters in Gaza. Again, another crime against humanity. But what I think we all need to take away from here and to spread the word that Zionism is a racist settler colonial ideology. And that racist settler colonial ideology has led to the continued seizing of land, the complete atomization of the West Bank, the blockade of Gaza since 2007, controlling water, controlling energy. And let's remember, Gaza is the third most densely populated place anywhere on earth. And so the Israelis know full well when they launch these military attacks that they're going to kill innocent civilians, they're going to kill children, but they do not care. I saw Abby Martin interviewing some regular Israelis, one after one of them, and I'm sure there are some good Israelis, but she didn't come across any in her vox pop that she was conducting of Israelis in Tel Aviv, and they were all advocating genocide. That's what they were advocating, genocide against the Palestinian people. But we know when people like myself speak out against the atrocities of the Israeli state, we're accused of indulging in anti-Semitism. We must be brave and stand up to those outrageous smears. That's why Jeremy Corbyn was targeted. That's why I was targeted. That's why many people inside the Labour Party have stood out against Israeli atrocities and in favour of the Palestinian people have been suspended and expelled from the Labour Party, many of whom are themselves Jewish, anti-Zionist Jewish comrades. And of course, Jeremy Corbyn had to be taken down because he was committed to introducing an arms embargo against the Israeli state. And that was unconscionable to the Israelis and the establishment. But you know, the atrocities that have been taking place for over 70 years, the Nakba in 1948, but it started before that, let's be clear about that. But Britain is culpable. It's Britain that gifted Palestine to Israelis. It wasn't theirs to give away. That's how the Israeli state came into being. Let's remember that. But it goes back further than that with the Balfour Declaration in 1917. This is where all these problems emanate from. But it isn't just those historical outrages that Britain has been involved with. There is active cooperation and participation with the British state, with the terrorist state of Israel. And I recommend an article that was published just today in an online magazine called Declassified, written by Mark Curtis. And he referred to an agreement which has been signed by the British state and the Israeli state. They are a key strategic partner. Israel has been training British troops on how to use drones which have been used to kill Palestinian people, field tested on Palestinian people. They've been engaged in joint military exercises. And more pernicious still, GCHQ shares intelligence with the Israeli state, and indeed were doing so during the various bombardments that have taken place. So this injustice has been going on for far too long. It's time to say enough is enough. We have to demand an end to the cooperation between the British state and the terrorist state of Israel. We have to demand an arms embargo, which Jeremy Corbyn was calling for. And as a bare minimum, we should be demanding that public service organisations like the Derby City Council here embraces the boycott, divestments and sanction campaign. They are the bare minimum things that we should be demanding. But as one of the younger speakers said earlier today, we should also be demanding sanctions against this rogue terrorist state of Israel. So let the message from Derby go out loud and clear to the world that we say, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Thank you for listening.